Hi, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary in Westborough. For those of you who haven't watched the show before, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an attorney at Mirick O'Connell. There are 70 of us, 20 of us actually, right here in Westborough. I do nothing but elder law, because there are so many of us, we get to do what we want. This show, though, is not about law. It is really about my friends Frank and Mary. If you've been to one of my presentations, you've seen me talk about Frank and Mary and their kids, Peter, Paul, and Mary Jr., and how Frank and Mary's goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if Frank and Mary are living in Westborough, that means what are the people and what are the programs, or who are the people and what are the programs that you need to know about in order to make sure that you can just stay at home until you die. So in thinking about this show, I decided I really needed somebody who really knew about the people and programs, and so I asked my friend Shelby Marshall, and we've been now co-hosting the show for a while. And Shelby inevitably brings great guests, and once again has one of the little stars from Westborough, person who has been, I've actually met Jim Robbins before, so I know he's been here a long.
He's an institution in
an institution. That's
well,
right.
It is my pleasure to be on the show, obviously co-hosting, and it's my pleasure to introduce our town planner, Jim Robbins. So
thank you,
welcome.
Shelby.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I knew she was welcoming you on because there's more big news.
Right.
I think you were just talking about being on this show,
a
show many years ago to talk about the results of the last master plan.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So today's, just for our audience's benefit, we're going to talk today about what a master plan is. We're going to ask some questions like, have we done one before? Newsflash, we have.
Yeah.
You just gave it away.
Oh.
When did we last do it, and sort of what were maybe some of the highlights of that, and where are we today, and what's happening with the next, if you will, Westborough's next phase of the master planning process.
Great.
So Jim, take it away. I'm sure we'll interrupt you at least once or twice,
That's
but
right.
this is your show now.
Well, good. Thank you very much, Shelby. And Arthur, I want to thank you, and the reference to institution instead of institutionalized when it comes to me. I really appreciate that, although some people at work here probably think he should be institutionalized. So, yeah, thanks for having me here. And the master plan is obviously a critical part of any town's government if they really want to have a vision for where the community is going to be and for the coming generations. And a master plan is a living, breathing document. It takes into account where the town has come from historically, where it is currently in itself and in the region, and where it wants to be in itself and in the region in the years and decades going forward. So the last time we did a master plan it was completed in the fall of 2003, and it was adopted at town meeting in the spring of 2004. And that entailed a survey of the town. We actually started over at that time because in 2003, there hadn't been a previous master plan since 1988. So we kind of felt like calling it an update at that time wasn't relevant. We needed to kind of start over. So we did a whole visioning of the community. We sent out a survey. We had 12 public hearings.
Wow.
We hired a really good facilitator and a master plan consultant that held and directed and facilitated the public hearings. And we came up with about 8 different critical areas to focus on, everything from economic development to housing to transportation to public facilities, water and sewer, ability to deliver services, of course education, and then recreation, open space, and the environment.
That's pretty comprehensive.
It is very comprehensive.
And by the way, I'm embarrassed to admit, so I was on the advisory committee to the Marlborough, I live in Marlborough.
Yes.
To the Marlborough's last master plan, which we completed in 1985. And it has not been updated.
Wow.
I'm going to go after you on that.
Just to put that right. Because I know that there's some sense of rivalry between the two communities. I just want you to know that's where we are.
Rivalry?
In the master plan.
Surely not.
Yes.
But it's healthy. That's what keeps the two communities progressing. Little bit of competition.
Yes.
Little bit of competitiveness helps you
Yes.
grow. Because if you don't grow, you die, right? That's the opposite.
Right.
So
that's why the development of Hudson has been so wonderful.
it has
it makes
been.
everybody
They're doing
go,
such a great job.
wow,
What are they doing?
What are they doing?
Right.
It keeps
And we need to keep up.
There's a million of those. There's
Right.
a million of those.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point when you talk about some of our neighboring communities, because the private-public partnership is so critical to the growth of a community. As a matter of fact, I would argue that the success of a community directing their future really is based on how well the leaders of the community get along with the private sector. Because without businesses, we can't grow our tax base. If we can't grow our tax base, we can't pay for the things that people who live here want, like public services and education.
Right, you can dream about them, but you can't pay for them.
Right,
Exactly.
right, exactly.
So in regard to the current master plan and where we're going to go with this, the planning board in the last couple of months put out a request for interested residents to serve on what we call the Master Plan Advisory Committee. And we had an overwhelming response. We had probably close to 100 people.
Oh, I love it.
Not just
Wow.
from the town departments, but at large, residents at large. And when I say that number, I mean that includes the town departments
Sure.
that are interested, as well as the residents at large. And we have about 25 people that are going to sit on this advisory committee. We have representatives from the Board of Selectmen, obviously the Planning Board, and all of the different departments in town that have a role in providing services to the community, as well as additional elected officials and people from the public that I've never met before, that I didn't know until I got their letters of interest.
Right.
That's great.
And it was hard to make choices. And as with anything, we've invited all those who did not get selected to be a member of the advisory committee to still come to all the public meetings so that their voice can be heard.
So talk to us about the process, like how did, so you're going to convene the committee?
Yes,
shortly.
You told us as we were
Yes.
starting, so you're convening?
Yeah, as we were talking earlier, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. in the fire department at 42 Milk Street
Right.
is going to be our kickoff meeting for the advisory committee.
And that'll be March, because the show's going to play a little later than
Right,
that.
the
so it'll be like
19th.
March
19th.
19th.
Right,
Yes,
will be the first
tomorrow,
one.
March
Okay.
19th.
Okay. And are
at 7
those,
p.m.
I generally don't know this, are those meetings televised when you meet as a committee?
This one will be because it's
Okay.
a member of the plan.
Okay.
It's a meeting of the planning board.
Okay,
And so this is really just a kickoff meeting where we let the advisory committee know what their role is. We explain to them what a master plan is, why we're doing it, the fact that we're going to go out for a request for proposals for a professional consultant to oversee and facilitate the public meetings, as well as work with myself and the planning board to write the plan. The advisory committee will become part of it once we hire the consultant.
okay.
They will work with the consultant before we get to the public hearing process to kind of direct the conversation as to what we want to emphasize in those public hearings.
Sure.
And then there'll be a series of public hearings. It could be a dozen, like there were last time. And we'll focus on the broad issues of where we want to be 20 years now, and then we'll drill down to specific topics like education and transportation, economic development, et cetera, like I said earlier. The whole process itself takes about 18 months, a year and a half. So it's not a financial plan, it's not a public facilities plan, it's not a recreation plan, it's a comprehensive plan that includes all of these things. And 18 months is actually a pretty good, aggressive, ambitious time frame. I've seen towns take 3 years. This last one that I actually have a copy here, for anybody who remembers what this looks like, took 18 months. This is available online. You can see the current master plan by going to the town website and clicking on either the town clerk or the planning department, and there's a link to the master plan.
Which is one of the nice things about now as opposed to the earlier years, that you can bring that information to everybody right away.
everybody.
Right.
And we have hard copies available to view at the library, so if you like to go and actually touch a map, and open it and look at it, you can do that at the library. You can do that at the planning department as well. The town clerk has a copy also. But a lot of people, because this is a comprehensive report, it's a couple hundred pages long, it's a lot to digest, they'd rather look at it at their leisure at home online.
Sure. Wow. And so with the master plan, we were talking earlier, and you mentioned sort of the areas that typically a master plan includes. There are some new areas that you're going to recommend, or the consultant will sort of
Yes.
recommend exploring.
Thank you for introducing
Maybe
that,
as a
Shelby.
result of your advanced age, that maybe we're talking about kind of being.
What? What are you talking about? Arthur, you and
All
and
of
I.
a sudden,
Oh,
there's a new section that everybody
Let's keep
is-
this
yeah,
friendly,
right,
gentlemen.
right.
Let's keep this. I don't want us
right,
to be
that's
wrestling
right.
on the stage here.
That's a great point. So the planning board talked about adding some new chapters to this update because the world has changed, technology has changed, our lives have changed in the last 14 years since the plan was last updated. And incidentally, a typical plan is intended to last 20 years. So we're in year 14, year 15 starting. It's a good time to begin doing it again. Yeah, we're going to add several new areas of concentration. Our neighbors, we talked about earlier, Arthur, you mentioned working with surrounding neighboring communities. So we're going to do a section on regionalization and how we can share services, as well as understand how really our residents work across the borders, because it's only a line on a map. People don't really think that the world ends at the boundary of Westborough. We have friends in Shrewsbury and Grafton and Upton and Northborough, all over Marlborough, everywhere, right?
Only a
But-
few, only a few in Marlborough.
Only a few in Marlborough.
Because, like you don't have like open space trails with a dead end sign. You know?
That's correct.
Crossing the border.
Right,
You
that's
know,
right,
it's like it
right.
ends
Right,
now.
yeah.
Sorry. you
And
know.
that's a really great
because
point.
I often walked often I walked to Westborough from Marlborough. From that, there's a trailhead for the trail that goes over Cedar Hill into the hospital land.
That's right.
That's in Marlborough.
Yeah,
Right.
and-
And you see it on our trail system. And
it just
in the Marlborough,
fades?
no, it's just like, it's like this little dot.
Yeah.
It looks like a little tiny trail because it's our parking lot, and then it ends because it's the border. It gets to the border, and it doesn't.
Where do I go from
It's
here?
like, well, this wouldn't be a fun walk.
Right.
You know?
You're gonna turn around and
but
go
it's
back.
part of miles and miles of trails from that spot.
Yeah.
And you and I have worked on that regional trail system that we've talked about. We've
That's
called
right.
it the bike and pedestrian path, which is a very friendly term, right?
Yeah.
A path. But we want to share open space and economic development, common goals with our neighbors so the region can grow.
Sure.
Right.
Because we share a road system now, right? We share a commuter rail system now.
Right.
We should
Yep.
share more things in common as
And
well.
as you mentioned, water and sewer. We
No.
run the Assabet starts here.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And your plant dumps into it and goes through Marlborough, and our plant dumps into
That's
it and
right.
goes to Hudson, and Hudson's plant dumps it.
Sure.
And I remember reading a statistic that in July or August, 90% of the water in
Comes
the
from the
Assabet
treatment
River
plants.
comes from the treatment
I
plants.
know, and
That's
people
true.
don't realize that.
So-
They think treatment plants are like a negative to that. It's like there wouldn't be any
There would be-
water
it
in
would
In
the
some
river.
cases, there'd be no flow in the
It
summer.
would
Right.
dry
if
up.
it weren't for
So
treatment
trying to
plants.
figure that out and trying to figure out dealing with, as you say, for all of our communities, trying to figure out how to deal with EPA and with DEP in terms of what is the balance between the economic development impact of those sewer plants and the environmental impact. That's really important. Really, really important.
Yes.
And when we talk about regionalization, I mean, I immediately think of traffic, right? You can't not
Come
think
on.
of traffic, right? And that's crazy,
Traffic.
isn't it?
It's not just
But I was just at
traffic.
a leadership breakfast that was sponsored by Massport, and the focus was on Fly Worcester, but it was very much about looking at all of our modes of transportation and how they're connected and making better effective use of them. So
Right.
is transportation part of sort of when we think about regionalization?
Yeah,
And maybe
and-
even open space as it relates to paths and stuff.
Transportation is a big portion of any master plan in general, but transportation on a regional level, regional model, is very important because think about it, if you don't own a car or if you choose to not use your private vehicle to get to work, you probably get on a train and you pass through several towns on the way to your destination. If you live in Framingham and work in Westborough, you're going to come through Southborough, right? And then you're going to come into Westborough. And then you're going to get off the train and you're either going to get on one of our local shuttles, because we have a Westborough shuttle to take you to your office, or you might call Uber or you might call Lyft. And even though those are private carriers, Lyft and Uber, they're really part of the necessity to finish the journey to work.
Yeah.
That term, finish
Last
the
mile.
journey to work, it's a multimodal commute today, right? You ride your car to the train. From the train, you get off the train, you get on the bus. You might walk, or you might even bicycle to work. So we try to develop safe ways for people to walk on a sidewalk, bike on a bike trail, other ways to get to work. Finish that journey.
And then this Uber thing has just kind of come from the sky. It's kind of changing where you really never would have thought about taking taxis every
Right.
place.
No.
But all of a sudden with Uber, it's like all of these things are happening. And once again, I'm just going to give you my out-of-towners perspective. And one of the things that I watch every day is the backup now in Marlborough from folks who are coming down 495, who are so bothered by having to go through the 495 piece to get
Sure,
to the Mass Pike in
sure.
Westborough, that they get off on Route 20, cut through Marlborough,
Yep.
because they want to get to Boston. So they're going to go through Marlborough and through Southborough and get on to the Mass Pike in Framingham.
Framingham, yep.
So we're all connected
We're all-
in
we
this.
absolutely
We're just
are all
so
connected.
connected in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So you have regionalization as a new element,
Yes.
if you will.
So a couple new elements in addition to that. One is technology. We all use our cell phones. We all use our personal computers. And some of us commute to work that way. We don't even leave our
interesting.
confines of our house. We walk down the hall, 20 steps, that's our commute, to our home office where we turn on our electronic way to commute to the office.
Sure.
So how is that impacting business?
Interesting.
What does stay at home mean to the way that you purchase things? Do you go out to eat locally now instead of going out to eat in the community where your office would have been when your office is home? Do you order everything to come to your house instead of actually going to a restaurant or a store to buy things?
Sure.
You get online, you can get it from Amazon, you can get it from the local grocer, will deliver it,
Right.
or you may call and then just go pick it up and never go in the store.
Right.
What's the impact that that has on us economically and socially?
Interesting.
So we want to do a chapter on technology impact on the community.
That's a fascinating
Yeah,
thing. That's
that really
really
is.
fascinating.
Yeah,
and the
because
number
I
of
don't think we
jobs that you
understand
now
it yet.
have. That
And
you,
they're different kind of
And
jobs,
they're all
right?
1 and 2 jobs, because
Yeah.
they're in everybody's house.
Yeah.
They're in everybody's house.
Fascinating.
Right.
Right.
And then the other area that we're talking about, and this one's probably going to get refined, is the aging community and what the change in the demographic makeup of our fellow residents is going to have on the economic decisions that we make going forward. So with the boomers are making up the largest sector of the population right now, they're aging. They have different demands based upon their age and how they see things technologically. What are their needs for transportation, getting from everything to the doctor's office, to the library, to town hall, and how should we react to that?
Right, and from the perspective of Frank and Mary, if you want to stay in your house, first of all, your greatest concern is my car. Oh my God, how could I ever manage to be in housing, which, in Westborough and in all of our communities, typically is kind of spread out. And so the loss of independence from that car. So can you really construct a community that has those services that allow me to continue to be really comfortable
Right.
while I'm living at home?
And independent and still feeling like you're independent but part of the community at the same time.
Right.
And so you can get around, and once again, I suppose the technology is a piece of that. And I guess, once again, from the perspective of Frank and Mary, this amazing, increasing awareness of a community's responsibility for its seniors.
Yep.
Because in a previous generation, community's responsibility for the kids. They were in little kids, and they were in a defined setting,
3 to
and we were
22,
we were watching them.
Right.
But seniors were always part of a kind of nuclear families and all these. So they always had their own kind of places to go, and there weren't that many of them because you dropped dead, right? Because you were dead. And now they don't, right? There are all these alive.
Yeah.
Well, I always tell folks, the standard, the Alzheimer's thing about, if your chances of developing dementia and ending up in some period in a nursing home when you're 65 years old is 1 in 9, and if you're 85, it's 1 in 3. And the reason is if you had something else, you're dead.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so there is just this bigger population of folks that need to be dealing with these issues, and what is the notion of what a community's responsibility is? That's got to be a real challenge.
That philosophy is going to be a real challenge. I mean, obviously not just for Westborough, for all communities, because we do
all of
have,
us.
it's mandated, right? Early education, becomes a public school responsibility, age 3, and now we educate our students, and now we have the borough program here to for those that need some additional assistance, to the age of 22. And so that's sort of like we just assume it. But I'm so curious about those, what is their community's responsibility for those that are, and it could be any age, because it's based also on sort of ability and what have you, but let's just say when you're over the age of 70, why aren't we looking at those individuals, or even 80, as also in need of those type of supportive services? And of course, with services comes, you have to fund them.
You got to figure this out.
And then there's equity. I mean, it's very complex.
And more so than ever, because if you think about, from my perspective as a planner, the first basis of all master plans is to do a demographic survey, so that you know how many people you have in town, and you know what age groups they fall into. And generally, in modern times, and I'll say the last 200 years for modern times. When people did a plan for their community, even if it was just a financial plan for the fiscal health of the community or an educational plan for the schools, the demographics didn't change all that much. And what I mean by that is there was generally a stable amount of people in each one of the
Sure,
decade
the
groups.
buckets, yeah.
And they always looked like a pyramid,
Yeah,
right?
they
There were a
did.
ton of kids,
And now-
and only a couple, and all of a sudden it's
It's
like,
upside down.
it's flat. Yeah.
The pyramid
Yeah.
is upside down because
Yeah.
the boomers are the largest sector of the population. So we are always planning for the school and the school-age kids because they were the bottom of the platform. We wanted to provide for them going forward. We still do.
Of course,
But the
yeah.
problem is with the largest age cohort being the boomers who are now all seniors,
Yeah.
we've got to provide for them because
Right,
of the largest
right,
sector of the population.
And communities, by and large, are not prepared for them.
Right.
I mean, our healthcare system isn't prepared for them. Our transportation, housing. We've talked. We've had lots of conversations about that.
So can I ask, so Jim, you have been here for a few years.
Yeah.
From your perspective, how has the community changed? You've been here for a long time.
Yep.
How has the community changed? And from your perspective, kind of where do you, what is your sense of it, where it goes? Because you like doing this. You just,
Yeah.
once
I
again, I've
wouldn't
known you
still
for
be
a
here,
long
right?
time. You truly love being a planner, and that's what planners like doing, is just kind of seeing it
Yeah.
and just trying to see it.
It's very organic. So, yeah, thank you for that question. I have seen a lot of change here. When I first came here, the community was working on how to absorb the amount of residential subdivisions. When I first came in 1992...
There was vacant land here?
Well, yeah,
There was-
I know. Yeah, there was.
Whoa,
There were a lot of
that was
farms
a long time ago.
that
right?
had, a lot of farms where the families sold the farm to kind of pay for their future because residential development in central Massachusetts, particularly here, because we're at the crossroads of 495, 9, and the Massachusetts Turnpike, the real estate values were rising rapidly. It was more economically feasible for a landowner to sell their land and live off the proceeds than to farm it.
Right.
So there were 13 active subdivisions, 13. That's a huge number.
That is
And we had
incredible.
at least 3 at that time, which were over 100 homes in the development. We had Yeoman Farms and Fay Acres and Toll Brothers Development, which
He
has
remembers them.
changed
He
3 or 4
remembers them.
times.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
now
yeah.
called Westborough Chase. Those were all just starting to get built. And then we had little subdivisions of between 50 and 10, and then we had some really small. We had 13 subdivisions going on, so there was a population influx into town. Then in 2005 to 2007, the economy started to turn dramatically, and we had a recession. And from 2007 to about 2011, there was almost no residential development. There were no new proposals for subdivisions. As a matter of fact, it's only now starting to come back. So during that time, banks were very tight with lending. There was a little bit of commercial growth, but we were just trying to hold our own and keep our businesses in place. And as you know, the surrounding communities had huge vacancy rates. We had larger vacancy rates than normal, but better than most surrounding communities. We were able to hold them. And then in 2011, commercial development came back with a vengeance. And now what's going on in this community is mostly commercial development. Lots of small business, lots of high tech, lots of biotech, and very little residential development. It's mostly commercial development. So we've also seen a very large change in our demographics. We have lots of diversity now. We have many people where English is a second language. We have, because of the change in technology, we have a lot of people who don't commute to work by leaving their house, like we talked about earlier, but they stay at home to work.
They stay at
So
home.
their needs have changed.
So that is kind of one of my questions. It's interesting. So, we have a census that's coming up. There's an electronic census, I believe, and so I would
Starting
imagine the
this year.
census data will be used as part of the master plan, but is there then if you will, a deeper dive to outreach? Because there's a bit of controversy about who responds to the census, what questions are going to be on the census, that could potentially alienate folks. How do we accurately capture the demographic? And I know certainly from my experience as a volunteer in the town, it's very difficult sometimes to capture everyone. It could be because English is a second language. They're not watching the show. I can't believe that. Everyone should watch
Everybody
the show,
watches.
right?
We're working on that. We're trying to get our ratings up. This could be
But-
part of it. This could be part of our
No,
initiative.
but sometimes it's difficult even to find them, right? Sometimes you have to go there. So how does the master plan, and the committee account for that?
Account for that. A really good question. So I'm not a demographer. That's one of the reasons that we hire a consultant to tell us who are we not capturing? Because the census procedure's already been designed.
Sure.
We're just going to implement it.
And that's
when-
amazing. It's going to happen while you speak,
Right.
while this whole process
Right.
goes
It's
on.
just
this is gonna
beginning,
happen.
the
Yeah.
census is just
Right.
beginning.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get those results back probably towards the end of the process or towards the second half of the process anyway. And they're going to be similar to the types of censuses that we had before. And so if we get back a number that says, oh, we only grew like 100 people in the last decade, we're going to scratch our head and go, no, anecdotally, we know that's not right. So how are we going to capture
Right.
that other amount?
Right.
It might be internet, online, where people don't have to give exact information to participate.
Right.
So if you're a non-English speaker or you're a member of an extended family, maybe you came here as a parent or a grandparent of someone that lived here in an extended family, you may not want to be counted. We have to be able to identify
Right.
them without threatening them.
Without
Right,
threatening.
right. Well, and it's so important too, because I certainly understand the sensitivity around maybe not wanting to be counted, but yet those same individuals very much may need services
Yes.
in town and need to access those. And so we, even just from a simple public safety perspective, we need to know
Exactly.
folks, like how many folks are living wherever they're living. I mean, that's just how many folks are ultimately, I don't know, using bandwidth, right? I mean, like if everyone is sort of just tucked away in their homes, how do we know that the technology is meeting the needs to support a community? I'm not saying that's part of the master plan, but you sort of start to drill into it. And,
Well, it will be part of the master plan. So you just made a really good point that, so if someone doesn't want to be counted and doesn't respond to the census, they will respond when they need an ambulance. You can
Right,
guarantee
right.
that, right? Either they or one of their family members will call the ambulance and the
Sure.
ambulance will get there and go, oh, I didn't know you lived here.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're not going to help them. Of course they're going to help them.
Right.
Right.
But we need to know where the elderly people live or people who might have a medical or a physical handicap.
Absolutely.
We want to be able to identify that.
And so I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to
no,
say,
go
so in some ways, the master plan process can be really a continuation of what I think Westborough has done really well, which has been to engage so many people. To get it just, I think you just have an incredible level of public of engagement with which evidenced the number of people that were willing to volunteer for the committee.
Yeah.
But to get
Yeah.
people really to be saying, this really is about my future.
Yep.
This isn't somebody else's future. This is my town. This is Frank and Mary's town.
Yeah.
This is about our future, so we really need to be participating in this.
Yeah, and I would stress to folks watching this and as they share it online that it is so important to be involved, to attend those sessions. I sort of admittedly will say the Board of Selectmen undertook a strategic plan. You were part of that as one of the department heads and leaders in this town. And candidly, the public engagement was really low, disappointing personally, I would say. And so I would hope we don't have, I think the master plan has a different sort of energy around it. And so for the folks that are watching this, I mean, the strategic plan is very much about, correct me if I'm wrong, about the services and what services do folks
is.
want. The master plan is a much bigger, much bigger picture, much more long-term focused or visionary. And I would hope that folks that maybe have heard about the strategic plan, maybe heard about it at a recent town meeting, would say, that's kind of interesting. Boy, I wish I were part of that, but now I want to be part of this, because that's sort of, that we'll be
Yeah.
implementing some of that. But talk also very quickly about how the strategic plan and the master plan sort of interact.
And by the way, talk in less than 30 seconds.
Oh,
because we need
geez,
to wrap
that
up
was a
this
long
because this was
question.
but this is so good
Yeah.
that we've suddenly,
I know.
right.
Yeah.
We just took 10 of
So,
his seconds.
so thank you.
You have-
So the
you have
master
3
plan
seconds.
is very broad, and it has goals and objectives and criteria. It's very measurable, but at the same time, because it's so broad, it draws in people who have a very small area of interest, a niche. Like maybe I'm an outdoors person, and I'm interested in aquatic life. So I want to be involved in the discussion of open space, natural resources, and the environment.
Right.
And yet they're going to rub elbows with somebody who wants to complain about traffic at the Rotary,
Right.
because they're going to the same public hearing. And they're going to rub elbows with somebody who's concerned about affordable housing because they're going to go to the same public
Right.
hearings. They may break off
Right.
and work on those areas of concentration, but they're all going to come back together and understand, well, the traffic at the Rotary really affects air quality, which really affects my environment over here.
Right.
Traffic at the Rotary really, may affect how I get to work every day. And where I live is really dependent on my ability to afford to be
Right.
able to choose
And
from
that's why
housing.
he's a wonderful planner.
know, he
Because
is.
he gets it. And that's why what a natural person
Yeah.
to be leading this
Yeah.
kind of effort.
This is great.
Thank you very much,
Jim, will
Shelby.
you come back?
You keep
I
doing
sure
this.
will.
You
I
keep,
know.
you keep hitting great ones.
I know.
We're gonna invite him on every once in a while to update us over
That
the
would be
next
great. I'd
18
love
And we
to
know
do that.
who our
That would be
next
great.
guest is. Remember, we keep talking about wanting to.
Yes.
Yes. So speaking of planning, we're going to have a guest from Del Webb on our next
great.
show. So
To talk about the
State hospital.
small
Del
small
Webb at
residential
Chauncey
community
Lake.
at Chauncey Lake. How
Very
terrific.
excited.
Very
So,
good.
We'll look
excellent.
forward to seeing you on our next show. Thanks a million, Jim Robbins.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Much, Shelby. And thank you all for watching Frank and Mary here in Westborough.
Thank you.
Thanks.